Alright guys, HyDra again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day. So far, Atlanta FaZe take the victory at Major 1. So much reaction to it, especially from Drazah beating Scrappy in the grand finals for the very first time. The LAN record between these two guys was not great coming into this tournament, but Game 5 and now Game 7, round 11s later, that's a different story. After all the drama that went down on main stage after this, Drazah's certainly given his reaction to it. What was actually said between the two individuals? Very much interested to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate. Thought this is really cool to see as well from the coaches corner. There was lots of great clips out of this over the last few days. I think the best one actually was from the Heretics when they won their game, I think to get to top 4 maybe it was the one they beat OpTic, I'm not sure, but behind the stage they had these kind of like tent setups really, where the coach teams or the coaches of the teams could set up just off stage and get some prep and I guess for their matches and all this. Lot to say on the future of these type of events, whether we're going to do more of these, because Riyadh is not going away. The Esports World Cup is not going away. I know there was even some talk this weekend about how much that tournament matters compared to Champs, because EWC was a big event, there was lots of money on the line. Not as much as Champs, but how prestigious will EWC be? In my opinion, it depends how many of them are run. In 10 years' time, it's likely the World Cup will be a very prestigious tournament if it continues going as it currently is. Last year, it was a bit of a one-off, but if it happens again, then it's no longer a one-off. So that's kind of my opinion on it. Champs will remain the gold standard for now, and there's a lot of discussion on that. But assuming it continues, one event out there in the Middle East, most events in North America for sure, will we get a European event every year? Because it's been 5 years. We were in London 5 years ago in 2020, February 2020, and we are 5 years later here in Madrid, February 2025. Before that it was, I think, what was it, May, May, June, or whatever it was, in 2019 where there was a London event, and before that there were plenty of events every single year. There was Birmingham the year before. Even in the end of the Jetpack era, we had some like small local European events in Sheffield, like EGL Sheffield, and like stuff like this anyway, that happened relatively frequently. Very long time since there's been an event in Europe. Very gettable for us in the UK, Ireland, like so many lads here from the UK and Ireland. It's been great. Obviously lots of Spanish local fans as well supporting the Heretics. And then the French contingent which came over. I think the reality is they probably made the event. I think without Gentlemates here, it would have been a pretty different reaction to it because like seeing the fan base they have, the fact that there was like 500 of these green suits as they call themselves that flew from France here to watch a team with one French player play for Gataga's organisation, and they started in losers and bombed out top 12, like. But still, they were mega, and they were here all weekends. And that was, I thought, the best thing, really, is that, like, those fans, they weren't just here for Gataga's team. They were here just, you know, for watching the Call of Duty. And, of course, they got behind HyDra as well as a French player. Maybe without HyDra, it wouldn't have been quite so intense. But, yeah, the venue atmosphere was great. Look, in Europe right now, certainly in Madrid, where there is Spanish fans, but it's not like there's loads of Spanish fans supporting the, you know, the local team. It's not possible to sell out a 7,000 seat arena like we had, but you can do that in Dallas, and you can get closer for sure in the UK and probably in France as well. So I think that's where the discussion comes for me, is that it was a great event here, love being in Madrid, but I wonder as and when we do it again in Europe, hopefully, which will be every year, you gotta think that Paris is maybe next on the list. Look, I'd love to have a London event again, but I don't really mind, as long as there's a European one every year. I think that's the conversation I have with lots of people, that as long as we get some European COD event every year, then it's probably for the best. And I think that we will. I mean, obviously, Daniel say here he is from the league saying the tournament was special, and absolutely it was a special tourney, right? I mean, the results we had, Heretics making the run to top 3, like, of all things, and then obviously the crowd and the rivalries in the crowd between the OpTic fans and the Gentlemates fans, and then the Gentlemates fans maybe for HyDra and the Spanish fans, like, you know, it was all going on in there. Now, still, in terms of energetic crowds, there was more people at Champs, right? So it's understandable that if you're going to do the World Championship and you're going to try and fill the arena the most, you're probably going to do it in North America. That would be my guess for now, but I think it's a good step for the league anyway that this has happened. And as I said yesterday, there's a few teams, Gentlemate, Heretics, you know, other individuals involved in the scene, of course, Toronto as well, that will be interested in running a UK event. And Toronto talked about it for some time, and they executed pretty spectacularly. As Scump says as well, Call of Duty is lit. I mean, there was some great games yesterday, and it was mainly FaZe Thieves. I think it was inevitable that FaZe Thieves were going to be the two teams in the finals. That's what we saw. And man, that series absolutely delivered. And yeah, it's not often you see two teams play every single map they could possibly play in the day, and the vast majority of them being absolute nail-biter games. Couple of interesting stats to go through here, starting with LA Thieves' record in the Grand Finals. So going into this series, Envoy had played 12 Grand Finals, he'd won 6 and lost 6. HyDra had played 8 Grand Finals, won 5, lost 3. Scrappy had only played 4, and he was 2-2 in those Grand Finals, but Ghosty notably was 0-3, right? Because Ghosty, well, what was it? He was on OpTic for a couple of times. They made the finals twice towards the end of the Modern Warfare 2 season. Then last year he went to the World Cup with Thieves and placed second to FaZe that time. So I think there was a feeling that, well, you know, maybe Ghosty, this is going to be his tournament to finally get over the line, right? And actually get the victory on the board. That's not how it worked out in the end, and Ghosty is now 0-4 in finals, which is pretty rough. You know, I think his day will come, but still, it's a pretty rough one. I mean, obviously people maybe in the OpTic days were saying, oh, Ghosty was doing his best and it, like, team were letting him down or whatever. And look, there's been moments where Ghosty has delivered good results in finals, but in this series, he had his moments, but you know, not a great performance. Ghosty won't be looking back at the series and saying, damn, like, you know, got costed by Envoy or something. Like, that's not how it is. So, Ghosty will be in more finals. It would have been a nice time for him yesterday to get his first victory on the board, but it didn't happen. And as Brian Stats also tweeted out yesterday, his head-to-head against Drazah, at least on LAN, is just disgusting. Like, he's 0-7 now, so it's not a great sign over there. Envoy, though, I mean, look, tough way to lose. Really tough way to lose. Thieves will be looking back at it. It's super gutting when you come that far and you don't win. At the end of the day, I think the teams know that either team could have won and either team would have been a deserving champion. So, you know, it was super nail-biting. It's also, I was thinking even going into that Game 7, Round 11, I was glad that it was a one-round shootout for the dub, but, you know, we were in a tennis arena, so I was kind of wondering, what if it was not a single round, but instead it was you have to win by 2, you know, you have to get to 7-5 or whatever, like 8-6 or 9-7 until you win. I know people have thrown that around before. I still don't think there's anything quite like a game, you know, a round 11 for all the bread. So I think I would keep it as it is, but it's definitely a talking point. And Scrappy, to be fair to him, you know, didn't even mention the whole Drazah stuff in his post-game analysis. Look, when tempers are flaring on the main stage, you're always going to get stuff like that, and we're probably going to get it again, because the way that these two teams played, and as we'll discuss a little bit later on today, the setups these two teams have around the structure of the team just makes them very hard to beat. I think the New York Subliners last year, they had a culture that even though that maybe their team wasn't as talented, they could still put up a fight and potentially win. I think Thieves have echoed that to some extent, and probably Sender is a part of that, coming over from the Subliners as of last year. FaZe definitely have it, and obviously the level that these two teams can play, even not considering the other factors in play, their level, Thieves and FaZe, just on paper, is higher than anyone else bar OpTic. So that's what I said yesterday, that OpTic will have, you know, a lot to watch and to think about here, because, like, this is the standard. And if not for OpTic and maybe one or two other teams getting back into the mix at some point, we will probably get more grand finals between these two, right? And the Scrappy Drazah stuff is not going to be going away. HyDra, of course, was pretty gutted about his performance, certainly in the Game 5 and in the Game 7 in the round 11, you know, pushing up mid, dying in that way. It was frustrating. There were other chances as well, probably, that HyDra had. I think HyDra had a pretty damn good tournament, though, and given where he was online, I think he was pretty excellent in general on LAN. Again, that Game 7, he'll be frustrated about, and in general it has been his search and destroy, which has been the struggle point. But it wouldn't be the first time that HyDra has started out the year not looking like the player that he ends the year as. I think this level for HyDra this tournament, if he improves through the year as he usually does, especially in a search and destroy, I think we're going to be looking back at the World Championship and maybe seeing HyDra with another ring on his finger, right? Because the Thieves team has all the talent and all the potential, and we saw them execute pretty well this tournament, but it it was the search and destroy that let them down. And to be fair, we kind of expected it to be in some level, right? Like going into the tourney, the weakness for Thieves was their search, and if there was anything that was going to let them down in the grand finals where there were 3 search and destroys, and there's a debate on whether there should be, really, 3 searches in 7 maps, but and I'm sure if Thieves could make a decision as to whether they'd change it to like 3 hardpoints or whatever, they'd probably do exactly that. But that's not how it is. That's what the CDLs decided. Search and destroy wins championships, and that was the case here for FaZe. So as Simp says, team put in so much work. I think you've got to give them so much credit, really. I was having a quick discussion with the Boston guys, and they were saying that like back in December, FaZe were... like, Boston would split maps with FaZe, maybe win most of the maps with FaZe in scrims. Since the start of this year, basically January the 1st, or the end of last year, whatever, like, start of this season, from 2025's perspective, they're unbeatable. Like, FaZe just, compared to normal teams on a normal level, FaZe just, they took such a level change over the Christmas New Year period when other teams were slacking off a little bit that, you know, they've really delivered, and it's massively impressive that they've achieved what they have done. But let's talk about what Drazah has to say, right? Because, like, I think he even made this known. He had a clip about it on stream months ago now when the initial super team for the Thieves was getting formed, and, you know, he backed up his talk. And fair play to Drazah, right? You like him or don't like him, whatever. The ego that he has is deserved because the guy delivers, right? Like, he does win championships. I know that he's with FaZe, but, you know, like other players, great players have failed to win with FaZe over the last few years. And Drazah has also failed to win with FaZe. Last year's World Championship was not pretty. But Drazah this tournament was a massively important part of why they won. And let's be honest, without that 3-piece in the rounds 9 or whatever it was of the search and destroy, could have been a very, very different result here. So yeah, Drazah continued on and he says, you know, Major 1 back to back. What have I done? Super team. Like I said, I'll break that. Hashtag FaZe up. And yeah, fair play to Major hitting the replies as well and giving some credit to a former player who, of course, who won the World Championship for his team back in 2022. I guess the key thing to note is that, like, it's the first event of the season. Drazah finding this gap was, yeah, a mega performance, I thought, from him, because that was a crucial round. HyDra got first blood that round, and if they'd have won that round, it would have been a very different story, but Drazah finds the gap. He made the icy play, and after the series was over, we got all this type of trash talk on the main stage, right? So, you know, this is what it's going to be like between these two after the words that were exchanged last year. To be fair, like, Scrappy was going for the fist bumps. They went for it after the winners final. That would never happen. Matt Fisher here from FaZe, he has to kind of like break them up, basically. So yeah, Scrubber's a couple of words. Look, you could probably guess what these guys are saying on some level, just because of what these pros usually say. But then they go at it again. Shane tries to break him up. Matt Fisher tries to break him up, and, you know, they call it a day for now. But they'll be back, you know. And I think the point that I was trying to make is, Drazah says, oh, I broke the super team. It's like, okay, you beat them game 7, round 11 at the first tournament. We've got plenty more tournaments to come, right? And I'm sure that's what Thieves will be thinking going forwards as well. And, you know, we don't know what they had to say. The guys on the main stage, I'm sure, know what they had to say. Maybe, you know, I'll have a couple of words. I'll see if we can figure this out. But like, it's probably what you might expect it to be. Banger tournament, though, at the end of the day. And even the Call of Duty League made a bit of an edit on this as well, which I thought was pretty funny. They seem to love this rivalry, right? The COD League love this rivalry. They love it so much that at the World Championship last year, let's not forget, they put Keeks and Darian up on the big screen. I mean, it was absolute scenes. They're definitely not doing that ever again, by the way. And I don't think Darian was actually even at this tournament. But it's more about Scrap versus Drazah, isn't it? Let's be honest. And Toronto last year were very good. FaZe last year were very good. They played each other a lot, but they did not necessarily meet in all sorts of finals. This year, it's absolutely possible that we see lots of these type of matchups happening again and again and again. And yeah, I'll be there for it if that's exactly what happens. FaZe moved to 9 overall event victories in the CDL. Look, you can look at their last few years and you can absolutely say they should have won more, and that would be probably fair. But still, they start this year off. They've made the grand finals basically every single major one for the last several years. This time they actually win it, and yeah, they've got 9 championships now. They've won at least a championship for the last 3 years in a row, not including, of course, Vanguard. And Drazah has now won an event for the last 4 years in a row. Of course, not always on FaZe in that cycle, a couple of times on Thieves. But yeah, still 3 championships for Thieves, 3 championships for FaZe. And whatever you think about Drazah, he has now, I think, delivered the most championships over the last few years. He's won 6 championships over the last couple of years. Simp and aBeZy have now won 12 times. They've won in 6 different COD titles. pretty crazy actually, this stat. 6 different COD titles, right? We're talking BO4 when they first came in together, MW19, Cold War, and then MW2, MW3, and now here in Black Ops 6 as well. So conversations definitely will continue to be had, especially because Simp delivered the MVP this tournament as well, as to where these guys are going to continue to sit all time. But very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.